I know last segment we talked about going from dating to being exclusive to being boyfriend and girlfriend, official relationship, and then from there moving on to being engaged, and then, eventually getting married. One of the important things that came to mind was timing, this concept of timing. And I feel like it always comes up with a lot of my conversations with my single girlfriends is, how do you know what the right timing is with dating? And how do you know what the right timing is for like becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, and timing even for engagement, right? How long before, the question comes up, how long before you guys get married? So I feel like timing is a really important thing to talk about.
I mean, this is a challenge for, I think, a lot of people, myself included. Not just for the dating perspective, but just in life in general. For me, I'm a big thinker. So I'm always like trying to be several steps ahead. And so as a result, I'm thinking about all the scenarios and this and that and what needs to come, what's coming next. And sometimes it can be hard for me to kind of just sit and enjoy the space that I'm in. And I think that's also true, when you think about spending time with somebody. A lot of us have our like 5-year plans or 3-year plans or whatever, where we would like to be in 12 months, et cetera, et cetera. And so sometimes we're trying to find someone to fit in our story, fit in our plan. And I think that's just fundamentally a wrong way to approach it. I think you really have to look to try to build something with this person that you're dating. And it sounds cliche, but you just have to take that one day at a time, right? I think it's important that you really get clear on what's important to you, what you actually value. We kind of chatted about that in the last video. And you have to bring that into this conversation, to this relationship, the building of it, the setting the foundation. You really have to come into it from a place where you feel whole as a person. I think that's the biggest thing. Coming into it and being able to bring your whole self into it. And that means, despite all the things that you have going on in your life, right? You owe this person, if you're serious around like seeing where this can go, you have to bring your best self. You have to, despite work going on, any family stuff you might have going on, friend stuff, whatever the case may be, you need to talk to this person about that, right? And be clear on like what you're trying to, where you're trying to go, what do you value, et cetera, et cetera. And so the last thing I'll say on that, as far as timing wise, I know like when I was dating, one of the things that started to click for me later on, like, before I met you, was there's a certain point where if you just keep going with somebody, things just get familiar, right? And it's very easy to enjoy the company of someone, but at the same time, it's just comfort, right? You don't really see this going anywhere. And it's very easy to let things kind of drag on. So one of the things that I kind of started to adopt was this idea around, if I start dating someone, I'm, really trying to kind of get to know them, I set a timeline of like 90 days, right? So that's just, 3 months. That just feels like the amount of time that it would take for you to really kind of get to understand, like, hey, is this person someone I could see me spending the rest of my life with? Right? I think that's fair to both parties, just because I feel like as you start to extend past that, right, it's very easy just to become complacent, right? Where it's like, oh, we enjoy spending time together. And I think that's where people a lot of times find themselves in situationships, right? Where it's like, okay, they're not necessarily bad. Maybe we don't align on several key things, but it's okay. I'd rather be with this person than be alone.
You fancy their company.
Yeah. And so as a result, it's easy for you just to kind of keep it going. I know it's easier said than done. It's hard to sometimes cut things off. People don't want to be viewed as the bad person, or whatever the case may be. But this is why I think it's so important with the intention that you come into the relationship with, right? If you both are mature, you're coming into this knowing that, hey, we want something serious. We're trying to set a certain direction for our life, et cetera, then it's okay for you to be able to come to a point where you're like, hey, I don't know if this is it, right? That's why, going back to my previous point, is when you come into the relationship, you need to be putting yourself in there in those 3 months, right? Like if you're going to be dating,
like really like put yourself out there, ask some tough questions, ask all the questions.
Yeah, it's like really,
like no playing games, like just
serious at bat, right? Like it's not just like, oh, well, we'll see how it goes. And, you need to be making time for them. You need to like, do things and start to kind of set the foundation for what you want to start to build. Like that's what that 3 month timeline is. And so I think if if you can kind of set that boundary, it reduces a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, because the longer things stretch on and they're not clear, the more of a chance that someone's going to get hurt, or both of you end up getting hurt, right?
So. Yeah, and I agree. As a rule of thumb, the timing with dating all comes down to your intentions and what you're trying to achieve. So if you're just casually dating and just, seeing how, things go from here, go with the flow, nothing wrong with that. That's just the season you're in. It means that the time might look very different. The time might not be 3 months. The time might be 6 months. Maybe you only see this person that you're potentially interested in like once a month or like once every few weeks. And you guys don't really talk regularly. With us personally, because our intention was to date to get married, we both were looking for something serious. We both knew what it is that we wanted in a partner in a relationship. For the most part, obviously, we're always working on that list of things we're looking for in a partner in a relationship. But for us, because our intention was serious, because our intention was to go towards something, a goal of, marriage, meaning, spending your life with this person, finding your partner in crime, in life. So 3 months was a good time frame for us. If anything, we actually started getting to know each other real fast because we were not trying to play games with each other. We weren't trying to waste each other's times. We were trying to just, really like set our eyes on the prize, so to speak. So 3 months time frame was a really good reference point. I think we actually became exclusive and boyfriend and girlfriend much sooner than that. It felt like it was kind of like in between two and 2.5 months because again, we were talking almost every day, if not every other day.
When you know. Simple as that.
When you know, you know.
You just gotta trust that feeling sometimes.
Yes, and so like I said, my rule of thumb is, timing all depends on the intention that you have for dating. And then second piece is, I always say, like, again, there's no like strict rule for every person. It also depends on your lifestyle, because if you're busy, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have your own company, or if you just work a lot, you might not have as much time to dedicate towards dating, right? So as my husband was saying, if you are not spending that much time into, asking the questions, engaging in conversation, like being mindful of the time that you spend with them on the phone, or like, trying to make plans with this person, it's that time frame is going to look very different for you. So
I'm gonna say one thing on that. Sorry to interrupt you. But yeah, I know a lot of people will use the excuse of like being busy, like, I got a lot of stuff going on and this and that. If it's one thing we know, right, and anyone can attest to this, is you make time for things that you 100%. Actually care about, right? Like, and if you're not doing that at all in your life, then that's a problem, right? That's what usually leads to burnout and things like that, right? Like if you're just so consumed with so many things going on that you cannot make time for something, then you need to probably step back and really just focus on your life, right? Just thinking about, hey, I need to organize my life a little bit better. And it's hard to
make space.
Because you can't just bring someone into that and think they're just going to understand. Is it possible that they can understand? For sure.
To a certain extent, though.
But I think at some degree, right, you can't put so much on somebody who you're just trying to get to know, right? I don't think you need to sugarcoat things or try to like send your best self on these dates or something. But I do think you need to be honest with them, and they need to understand your lifestyle, right? Think about what you're trying to create, what you're trying to build, and they should be able to see eye to eye, right? Or at least be able to empathize and say, hey, how can I support? How can I be there? And that's going to start to tell you a lot around whether this person is the right person to kind of be with you in the stage of life. TLDR, too long, didn't read, piece of that is, just come with your full self, be able to talk about things, because that's going to set a good foundation, right? But then also be honest with yourself and say, hey, am I in a good spot to be able to date, right? So.
Absolutely. 100%. The more honest you are with yourself, like you all already know, who you are. Ideally, you should know who you are as to the best of that you can before you start dating. Because if you don't know yourself, how are you going to expect someone else to understand you and what you like, what you don't like, what your lifestyle is like, and be able to keep up with that. You made a really good point of how important it is to be present and not so fixated on like our timing, our perfect timing that we envision for our lives and dating and relationships, because there's so many of us who just get so caught up with like, okay, like I want to by this date or by this age, I want this kind of partner, and I want this kind of job, and I want to be married by age 30, or, I want kids by this. And, we set these strict molds for ourselves of expectations and almost put pressure on ourselves. And though it's good to have goals, it's good to have, something that you're working towards. But in terms of timeline, I think when we get so caught up with that, we almost prevents you from being present. You were talking about this. When you're not present, you really get so fixated on the future and like what this person could be and how you're so fixated on how this person could fit into that mold of your timeline and of your future that you almost like miss the signs like of what's important and what's right in front of you. You end up having blind spots. You end up like overlooking, like you get so caught up with the giddiness and like the butterflies and like, oh my gosh, I really like this person and this person makes me feel XYZ and like we have such good chemistry and yada yada. You're so excited and you almost get a high of just like, oh, this person could be it, like could be the one. And to a fault. And, I'm guilty of this myself. We all are. It's so easy to get so swept up on our feet when someone really great comes along and you get caught up in the motions of things. But I always say, anything too soon or too fast is not a good thing, especially in the context of intentional dating, intentional relationships, and especially if you are wanting something serious and you want to work towards marriage or like a serious commitment. You want to make sure the foundation of a relationship has what it takes to withstand time. And I know time, we always act like we have control over it, but we really don't. And life will, God, for us as Christians, God has his timing for things. We believe that God has his timing and it's way better than what we can fathom. And so I always feel like as much as we want to put like controls and like, guardrails around like the timing for dating and relationships, you just want to make sure you're not rushing into things, rushing into a decision. You want this to work so badly that you're willing to forego certain things or overlook certain red flags to get to that future outcome that you are fixated on. So that is my thing. I think you want to take your time. I always compare it. I tell all my single girlfriends, you want to treat dating as like a slow cooked braised rib. Not too slow, but like just enough to marinate the juices and for the meat to become tender. And I always say it's nice to take your time, enjoy the process of the journey of getting to know this person, have fun, with banter and have fun getting to, do fun stuff with this person, spend time with this person, get to know this person in different angles. And how are they with family? How are they with friends? How are they with, when situation gets hard, when, maybe they're going through something at their work, or maybe they're going through something in life, and being able to really just fall in love, with this person from very different angles and different ways. And I think that only comes with time. You can't rush it.
One of the things I'll say, just kind of as I was hearing you out on that point, is a lot of the work in dating is done prior to dating someone, right? So before you start dating, all the real work is done. When you start dating somebody, it's very rare where you're going to like all of a sudden just like completely level up and like do all these things. And for example, we talked about like the infatuation piece, right?
Yeah.
That comes from this yearning, right? Typically when you get infatuated, like you have to kind of think about that feeling, right? I think it can be a little more challenging for us because like, we've been past that stage. But even as you were talking, I just try to put myself back into that time. And there's been times where I was dating and I was like I would be talking to someone and I was like really excited and like legit, I would be at work texting and instead of actually working, right? And I think we can all like, and I was just like, I look back on those times and I was like younger and I was just like, man, like I probably looked like just like, I think it's nice to be able to reach out to somebody and chat with them. But like when you're at work and you're supposed to be getting stuff done and you're just texting this person the whole time, it's like, yeah, it's cute and whatnot. But like, I do think there's a time and place for everything, right? And it's easier said than done. But that's what I mean. Like, I feel like as I matured and I started to understand what a relationship was supposed to mean, I realized it wasn't around these intense feelings of, oh my goodness, like this is, the world is just so much brighter now and, everything's so great. It was more of like, I kind of understood where my life was and I was in a place where I wanted to share these things that I was like, doing things at work and like just my health, like taking care of myself and all these things. Like I wanted to share that with somebody.
But I got those feelings.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
You
I
got those feelings, but like it was different.
Yeah.
It was a much more mature because I didn't come into our relationship like, this person's gonna complete me. Like this is my missing piece.
That's
like at that point, I was kind of past that stage because as you go on dates, and I encourage everyone to like go out on dates and like meet people, talk to people, right? Like even people from different backgrounds from you. Just like even if you don't actually go out on a date, but just chatting with them, being open-minded, getting different perspectives. Because as you were saying before, babe, like you don't know exactly what you want right off the rip, right? Like a lot of times you think, okay, this is what I want. This is what it looks like.
You know what you want.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I think we touched on this before, but it's important to have good counsel around you, right? So have good friends, good family who can speak into you and say, hey, who would be great? Like even if they don't recommend someone, but they're like, hey, you need someone who appreciates this about you. You need someone who's willing to...
You're a hard worker. Someone who can understand why you work so hard. Or like you love fitness. Like you need someone who understands that. And that's important because if something is important to you and like you know why you love like this job or this career or this activity or this hobby, like this is your life, right? You're so very passionate about something. You deserve to be with somebody who gets that, who will understand why you wake up every morning, excited to do this thing. And you deserve nothing less. Like you deserve to be with somebody who just makes you even more excited, and pushes you to pursue it. And they should want to elevate you naturally, right? Because it's the very thing that they admire. I know so many family and friends who are in this situation where they get swept up with like, oh, he's ambitious, he works so hard, he's a provider, blah, blah, blah. And then behind the scenes, like it's not as pretty as you think, right? It's the grind, the hustle, the sacrifices that they have to make, the countless sleepless nights that they endure. And although there's a certain point where like that's may not be healthy, but like there's things that you are passionate about and you want to work really hard for, right? And it's after the relationship, right, that now these parts of you are exposed, and that person may not necessarily truly understand that passion that you have. So that's my only thing that I wanted to bring up is like be careful not to put anything on a pedestal and put anyone on a pedestal because, when life is like, and that's why I say too fast, too soon is not good. You want to, let it marinate, get to know this person, get to know what it's like, with everything that they do in their life, and be part of that, right? Almost, I hate to say it, but like a trial phase.
It is what it is, right? Like you are, it's a try before you buy type of situation. Like, what it is.
Because like the more you give it time, right? You also want to assess with if this person and you are compatible without the infatuation stage, right? Past that infatuation stage, I should say. What happens if you give it time, give it 3 months, past 3 months, 6 months, a year, right? Before marriage, before the actual commitment part. You want to make sure that, okay, are we still compatible? Like after that season is gone, after all the excitement, after the game is over, like, can we still have fun? Can we still get excited about each other's lives and, enjoy each other's company and like or will it go stale, right? So that's something that I thought about with timing is, state your intention, be honest with your intention. Obviously you want to state your intention with the other person when you're dating, that's important. But also assess, make sure that you know what you're going after and then everything kind of falls from there.
Yeah, and I'll just say this to wrap up, right, is, it can sound a little contradictory, right? Because one thing we're saying, don't focus on the timing. But at the same time, we're saying, hey, 3 months, 90 days, you should have an idea. But the idea is, once again, going back to, I think the main premise of what we've been saying here is it's the intention that you bring to your dating. It's what the work that you do before you get into the dating, right? Because you should be honest with yourself, and you know that when you're dating someone, hey, is this feel like it's going the right way? Can I be honest and open and really understand this person and see the red flags for what they are, instead of trying to just get caught up in the infatuation and ignoring things, and then only for them to kind of pop up later down the line. And that's why it's important to have these important conversations earlier in the relationship, right? Because you want to think about the foundation you're trying to build. And if someone just doesn't fundamentally align with you right up front, it's like the chances of them just figuring it out later is very slim, right? And typically what ends up happening is one of you acquiesces, right? Where you're just like, okay, it's comfortable. I enjoy being with this person. And so you kind of start to give up some of your values, things that were important to you,
like
right?
compromise,
And, you know, and I think compromise can be okay depending on the right thing, but there's certain things that are valuable to you that, for example, could be kids, right? It could be, hey, I want to move here and this person's not open to that. Or I see a life of adventure and this and that, and that's what I want to do. And this person's like, oh, I like kind of being more at home or whatever, right?
Or
Like
beliefs, religion. Right?
Religion is another big thing,
Or
you
politics.
know, politics, like there's all different types of topics where it's like, it's good to have an open mind and hear from other people, but at the same time, it's like you should have done the work on yourself and you come into it and you're clear on like what you're looking for, right? It's like, it's okay to want what you want, right? Obviously, as you get older, as you mature, as you kind of think about things, it's okay also to then make tweaks and changes, right? And I think that's really important. And it's extremely important that you feel good about the person you are. You feel good about what you're bringing to the dating market, what you're offering to the dating market, to the person that you're trying to get to know. Because if you feel confident in that, a lot of good things start to kind of come from there. And we've all, you know, dated someone or talked to someone who we know is confident, and we've all talked to someone who we know is not confident, and we can tell the difference pretty quickly. So just something to keep in mind as you're facing the challenges out there that are await in 2026 and beyond in the dating market. So
Till next time.
till next time.